The klaxon wailed, a mournful shriek echoing through the sterile corridors of the Galactic Council. Lieutenant James Mason, a wiry human with a mop of unruly brown hair, slammed his coffee mug down, the bitter dregs staining the pristine white table. He didn't need the flashing red lights or the blaring announcement to know things were very bad. Terran incursion detected, boomed the holographic voice of the AI overlord, its synthesized tone devoid of emotion. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Humans, those unpredictable, chaotic Terrans, launching an attack? It was unthinkable. Mason, however, felt a flicker of something else, not fear, exactly, but tense anticipation. Humanity, for all its flaws, was known for its resourcefulness. Its jury-rigged tech and duct tape solutions often outperformed the meticulously crafted marvels of the more advanced species. Perhaps, just perhaps, this wasn't a full-blown invasion. Ignoring the rising panic around him, Mason strode towards the central holographic display, a swirling vortex of data depicting the unfolding crisis. A lone Terran cruiser, battered and bruised, hung defiant in the face of a hulking Glargonian dreadnought, its massive weapons trained on the smaller vessel. Sweat prickled on Mason's palms. The Glargonian High Commander, a scaled behemoth with glowing red eyes, bellowed a challenge that resonated through the chamber. Their message was simple: surrender or face annihilation. But the Terran ship remained stubbornly silent. What were they waiting for? The council chambers buzzed with nervous energy. The Glargonian High Commander bellowed another ultimatum, ratcheting up the tension. But still, the Terran ship held its position, as defiant as the strange, ape-like creatures that piloted it. Mason's mind raced. Humans don't do things without a reason. This wasn't bravado, it was a calculated risk. But what were they calculating? He zoomed closer to the holographic display, scanning the readouts and the cruiser's schematics. A sudden jolt of adrenaline shot through him. It was so preposterous, so utterly insane, and yet so perfectly human. They weren't just holding out, they were baiting an attack. But why? One by one, the Glargonian weapons glowed a fiery orange, primed to strike. Mason could almost hear the whoosh of superheated plasma moments before it would consume the Terran vessel. His heart pounded in his chest. This was madness. Just as the dreadnought unleashed its devastating volley, a ripple pulsed through the space around the Terran ship. To the stunned amazement of the Council, the cruiser vanished. It wasn't cloaking technology but a crude, makeshift distortion field, just strong enough to momentarily throw off the Glargonian targeting systems. For a fraction of a second, those weapons, meant to obliterate an entire vessel, fired blindly into empty space. But in that split second, something miraculous happened. A flicker of light materialized, not where the Terran cruiser had been, but directly behind the Glargonian dreadnought. Mason didn't even have time to process the impossibility of what he just witnessed when the Terran cruiser materialized, engines blazing directly in the path of the misdirected Glargonian fire. The gargantuan weapons were already spent, and they did not have time to recharge. Before the reverberations of the first volley had even faded, the dreadnought was consumed in a blaze of its own destructive power. Shockwaves rippled through the Galactic Council as the image of the smoldering Glargonian ship flickered and went dark. Mason slumped back in his chair, the adrenaline rush leaving a shaky weakness in its wake. The humans hadn't outfought the Glargonians, they'd outwitted them. The makeshift distortion field, likely pieced together from spare parts and a dash of reckless genius, wasn't just a shield, it was a teleporter. A crude, risky, brilliantly audacious teleporter. The council chamber erupted in pandemonium. The Glargonian representatives shrieked accusations of barbaric tactics and unprovoked aggression. The Terrans, represented by a wisecracking, unshaven captain on a cracked view screen, offered a lopsided grin and a casual salute. Mason felt a swell of mixed emotions, relief that a crisis had been averted, awe at the sheer audacity of the Terran gambit, and the nagging suspicion that the humans, once again, weren't revealing the full extent of their capabilities. After all, if they could achieve something like this with duct tape and sheer determination, what else might they be hiding up their sleeves? In the immediate aftermath, the humans became the begrudging heroes of the hour. Their reckless maneuver had saved the day, even if the methods left much of the established galactic order sputtering in indignation and confusion. The Galactic Council buzzed with frantic analysis as the technologically advanced races struggled to understand how a species barely a century out of its own solar system had outmaneuvered the Glargonian war machine. Mason, meanwhile, found himself summoned to clandestine meetings. Suddenly, those unassuming humans and their knack for improvisation weren't just a nuisance, they were a valuable asset. Whispers of human ingenuity and strategic unpredictability slithered through the corridors of power. Offers of joint research and collaborative development flooded the Terran channels. Races that once treated humans as an amusing footnote in galactic history now scrambled to form alliances. Humans, after all, were the ones that had turned the enemy's greatest weapon against them, a staggering feat of quick-witted adaptation. But Mason couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. The galaxy was abuzz with the Terran victory, but he was privy to a deeper truth. The so-called teleporter was a glorified slingshot, barely functional and liable to explode as often as work. The humans had gambled on courage and a bit of crazy science, not on any hidden technological marvel. He wondered if it truly mattered. The humans had yet again defied expectations. Perhaps their real power lay in their unique mixture of recklessness and resourcefulness. This new fascination with Terran's unpredictability was both a gift and a curse. The humans were now too dangerous to ignore, yet too volatile to fully trust. The unease lingered. It echoed in hushed whispers in the halls of the Galactic Council and in the furtive glances exchanged between leaders. Mason, against his better judgment, became something of an expert on the human factor. What he found was a paradox. The humans were remarkably easy to read and frustratingly opaque at the same time. Their intentions were straightforward: protect their own, explore, and occasionally tinker where they probably shouldn't. Yet their methods were maddeningly unpredictable. They'd combine obsolete technology with a dash of inspired insanity, creating contraptions that defied logic and, more often than not, worked exactly as intended, at least for the moment. Their culture reflected this unique dichotomy. It was an intoxicating mix of earnest camaraderie and flippant humor, even in the face of overwhelming odds. They were intensely loyal and fiercely independent, capable of incredible heroism and astounding recklessness, sometimes in the span of a single day. Mason would sit in on debriefings, analyzing Terran combat footage. The humans seemed to lack any discernible battle strategy. Instead, they had this maddening ability to adapt on the fly, turning mistakes into opportunities and weaknesses into bizarre strengths. There was a term for it, he learned. Battlefield improvisation. It made tacticians across the galaxy pull their hair out, or whatever the equivalent appendage was for their respective species. The galaxy was changing, and Mason stood on the fault line of this shift. The Galactic Council was no longer an alliance of advanced civilizations condescendingly shepherding lesser species. It was an arena, and the humans had just barged onto the stage, ignoring the rulebook and rewriting the play as they went along. The more Mason interacted with the humans, the more he came to realize they weren't just a disruptive anomaly, they were a catalyst. Their penchant for unorthodox solutions had ripple effects across the galaxy. With its centuries-old battle strategies, the rigid hierarchy of the Xylorg Empire found itself outmaneuvered by a motley crew of humans in retrofitted cargo ships. Their adaptability and on-the-fly modifications baffled the enemy forces. It seemed that while the Xylorg spent decades perfecting a single tactical maneuver, humans would invent, deploy, and scrap 3 variations simultaneously. The meticulous, research-driven scientists of the Valdorians were both fascinated and horrified by the pace of human innovation. Terran research followed a trial and spectacular error pattern, punctuated by moments of blinding brilliance. The Valdorians watched in awe as humans jury-rigged solutions years ahead of their predicted timeline. They then spent half the night arguing why it shouldn't work according to known scientific principles. Even diplomacy was not immune to the shift. The once sacrosanct protocols and etiquette of the Galactic Council became tinged with a touch of wary anticipation. Would the humans show up in their official uniforms or whatever they'd pulled out of their laundry basket that morning? Would the speeches follow tradition, or would they involve hand-drawn charts, off-key singing, and some kind of questionable prop? Mason's initial discomfort evolved into a grudging fascination. He witnessed a galaxy learning to be just a little more daring and quick-witted in the face of the human phenomenon. And perhaps Mason mused, that wasn't the worst thing that could happen.